Hi, good night. Welcome to this final delivery of my final project of philosophy with the Philosophical Olympics. And well, let's get started, okay? Throughout human history, we have seen many important people that transcend inside the history of the human being. People that became leaders, important scientists, philosophers, people that became kings, dictators, or even politicians that nowadays control the world, that control the world nowadays. And I believe that shares something in common all those people, which is the fact that they lend part of their power and liberty to something more. Could be something physical, metaphysical, could be something good or bad, something selfish or generous. It doesn't really matter. The only important thing is that they lend that part in order to accomplish it. And also, I would like to say that it's not just with the transcendent people. The average of the common people lend that power or that liberty in order to coexist with somebody else, to live happy, or in simple words, to have a purpose and a sense to their lives. Getting more detailed and explaining this idea with some examples, let's get started with a simple one. All the time, we have leaders, people that have excellent skills to socialize, to join people, and to say and not to say what to do in order to have a common will. It happens to the emperors, to the presidents. Uh, every time there's someone who could be a leader and there's someone who could follow that leader. In this example, the follower will lend that capacity of be free and lose the chance of do whatever she or he wants because it gives sense to her or him. Maybe because it needs someone to say what to do, maybe because it needs someone to say what's wrong or what's bad, maybe because it shares an objective. The real point is the fact that there is someone who needs to give and lend that power. In this case, will be delivery in order to have a better life. Okay? Um, all right. If you did not get it, let's get another example. Another example more complex and more explained. In the World War II, the World War II was caused because a dictator called Adolf Hitler. Everybody knows who is Adolf Hitler. Um, Hitler convinced a whole country to fight with almost all Europe because he said and he believed that Germany was the best country in the world and they deserve a better treat with the other countries. More than the ideas of what's wrong and what's bad, if it was fair the conditions that Hitler and Germany live in and the actions he did, we have to focus on what he believed, what were his thoughts, and what was his idea of the perception of the things. Because once we get it, we can understand that he lends himself to these ideas and actions. He lends his power, in this case, could be the action of literally stopping one of the most relevant and tragic events of human history in order to embrace his idea of Nazism and transform Germany into something greater. Again, just focusing on the idea and not on the moral part, okay? Because that's what it makes sense to him, okay? It made sense to him to basically provoke the two world war, okay? It makes sense to him to follow that idea that he made inside his head. Is what it gave him a purpose to live and a sense to live itself, okay? So having already the historical background and the context, that's why I truly believe that the human being needs to lend some of his power to something in order to give sense to his life and understand his existence. Okay? We have the mission of finding something that fills us in order to still coexist, not just live, but have the necessity to still be living, to enjoy life, and wanting to still be alive. We have to embrace the previous idea and lend our power and give it to something that is important to you. Everyone should be able to understand everyone's unique, and it's okay to give a purpose to something that just makes sense to you. This idea of lending power is the simple fact of lending yourself to anything, to anything you want for the simple fact of sense. Okay, giving your power, your energy, your effort, and yourself to something, and basically opening your gates to something or someone is the biggest affection someone can do to their lives. And the most incredible thing is that everyone chooses that thing they will spend that power. It's a hard work because people could easily fail and fall into desperation, pessimism, even craziness or laziness. Due to postmodernism and the advance of the science and the technology, we have fallen into a nihilistic perception of the world, and we have to accept that. That's why we have to lend also part of our power and to lend that resistance and accept the idea of the absurd, where everything can happen and everything do not care. Accepting the absurd of idea that we could die by any moment or that somebody very close get killed and you cannot see him anymore, it can give you sense to your life too, because makes you dimension of the circumstances you live in and makes you realize that every day counts in this life. Okay, all this previous idea and evidence, you can prove it thanks to almost all the existentialist philosophers that have existed along history. Okay, the Leviathan with Thomas Hobbes and his idea of losing power in order to receive something in change, the ideas of that each human being have the capacity to choose its own sense of life with Nietzsche and Schopenhauer, the understanding of the absurd and the nihilism with Camus and again a little of Nietzsche, and basically every single philosopher could explain to you in his own way how if you give yourself to your own purpose, you can give a sense and a meaning to your life. Okay? And I know some people could be totally against my posture. Even Nietzsche will disagree with me with the simple fact that I cannot take into account metaphysical things, and not just that, but that also I should prioritize the will to power in order to become superhumans and evolve every day. And leaving aside Nietzsche for a moment, people will say my posture is unfair. What happened with the no correspondent love? With the work that you have fought for years and hasn't come yet? At what point you could become powerful when everything you do is to lend and lose power? And well, for me, a simple way of seeing it is the absurd and the freedom that comes with the absurd. Maybe I'm a very weak person who do not curse the suffer and the misery, but for me, it's the other way around. There's nothing more valuable than knowing that you could feel the love, you feel being in love to someone, and be feeling the expectation that you will be reciprocated. Okay? There's nothing more satisfying than celebrate anything you have achieved. Anything. Anything you want. That there's an incredible feeling celebrating those details. And there's nothing more glorious than living this absurd life every single day, one day at a time. Maybe I'm not that strong as Nietzsche, and I feel Nietzsche would like to me be more strong, but that's why I include metaphysical things. I simply do not care if that gives you reason to your existence or not, okay? For me, I care more about the physical things than the metaphysical, but I accept the metaphysical things. Sometimes I have seen it in my family. Cousins or maybe uncles have achieved incredible things that simply blows my mind, and the only answer I get from them is that thanks to the will of God that I could achieve this goal. And for me that sounds very stupid, but I accept it. I accept that, and I accept that if that's how they see the life, and that's how their life makes sense, it's totally valid. So basically, in conclusion, everything is free to believe, and everyone is free to believe anything they want. Every everyone have the capacity to give their own sense to their lives, and everything coming from the loss of the power and the release of yourself. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy my final activity.